Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to Grace Community's virtual church. We are excited to have you here, excited to share the gospel with you, excited to continue our series on the I am statements that Jesus made in the Gospel of John. We're this week getting into those statements. This week is I am the bread of life. And in his great book, one of my favorite ones he wrote, called Searching for God Knows What, the author, Donald Miller, basically just kind of laid out what would happen if an alien race came to the world and observed. And they would go away with one observation. Human beings are searching for something. And he's right. We are all looking for something. And that something we believe will somehow satisfy the deep longings and the deep desires of our hearts. But the simple fact is that there is nothing that can truly satisfy us except for Jesus Christ. Now, people will try to fill that with countless other things. They'll use religion. They'll use money, possessions. They'll use sex. They'll use pleasures of this world. But there is not a single thing in this world. There's not a physical possession that can fill an emotional or spiritual need. There is nothing physical that can fill emotional and spiritual needs. It's just the way it is. And so what we need to see and what we need to realize is that when Jesus said, "I am the bread of life," he was saying that our need is him. People were trying to fill it with bread. The people came to him because he fed them. And really, it gives a very stark comparison to the manna in the wilderness, that the manna in the wilderness was temporary. The manna in the wilderness would go bad if you kept it for too long. The manna in the wilderness fed a need at that moment. And Jesus, when he provided physical bread, it lasted. There was 12 baskets left over. He commanded them to gather them instead of commanding them to leave it on the ground. So you can even see that Jesus, in meeting physical needs, did it better than it was done in the Old Testament. He was a fulfillment of things in the Old Testament. But Jesus himself being the bread, that if we partake of him, we are filling an actual spiritual, emotional need that we have. And that will be truly filled. It won't be band-aided over. It won't be placated for a moment, but it will be filled and fulfilled for eternity. And that's what Jesus is trying to point us to, is this realization that when he says, "I'm the bread of life," that what he's really doing there is that he's pointing our hearts to what it actually needs. So as you watch this sermon, as you dive into this, I encourage you, take notes in your Bible, write things down. I encourage you to dive in. I encourage you to join the discussion on the comment section. Talk about what you've noticed, what you saw. But more than anything else, I encourage you to be a member of a local body and to dig in and to contribute and to be a part of that church. We are so glad that you're here, but I don't want to see this replace the local church in your life. So go ahead, find a local church, dive in, be a part, and grow with those people. We love you. Hope to see you soon. Bye. Say your thing was. Anyone willing to shout it out? Basketball? Did I hear basketball? Huh? Gunsmoke. Okay. Yeah. I thought you said you took up smoking. Like, yeah, just, thought I'd give it a try. Always wanted to. What? Game shows you. What game shows you find? Anyone find something else? Gunsmoke. That's a good one. Mac Dillon. What? Was that Mac Dillon? Gunsmoke was again Mac Dillon? Yeah. All right. Little House on the Prairie. Anyone else find a new show they dove into? Anyone try Tiger King? Anyone try that one out? Amy and I made an episode and a half. We were like, this is hot garbage. We're not going to watch this anymore. We're just done with it. It was bad. It wasn't even entertaining. I don't know what people got all fired up about that liked it. 7 people on the internet liked it, and the whole world had to try. So Amy and I, though, got really into, and still are, Survivor. So we are 19 seasons into Survivor at this point, because we make just terrible decisions, and we stay up late, and we watch the show, and then we're tired in the morning, and we're like, why do we do this? But guess what we're going to do that night? We're going to watch Survivor till midnight, and then we lay in bed and we discuss things that happened in 2008 as if it's relevant, and so we got just super into Survivor. And one of the things I like about it is that, do we have childcare today? Is that something we have? I didn't want to get rolling here and not dismiss kids if we were. If not, that's fine. I just didn't want to miss it. Okay, so one of the things I really like about it is it's like a microscope into humanity. So it really, I know people will behave somewhat differently inside of the game, but at the same time, like, if you're going to make that decision in the game, I feel like your moral structure is built such that if someone was to offer you money, you'd probably make the same bad decisions that you made in the game. Anyway, so we're watching this show as these people get marooned on an island for 39 days, and they have to just survive against 19 other people, and they play in all these different challenges and stuff, and it's a whole thing. Well, anyway, one of the things that really kind of came to the top for me when I was watching this show was that people will only build, the way they build relationships is just really interesting to me. So they build relationships with other people based upon what you can do for me. So it doesn't even matter if they have that much in common. Like, most of the time they come together based on what they have in common, but once they realize, like, this person can't do anything for me, they will vote them out in a moment, right? They're like, I'll write your name down. You do nothing for me. You have surpassed your usefulness. And they'll vote them out. They will only keep people around that are useful to them, right? And isn't that how we behave? Don't we do that? Like, I don't look for relationships where I can contribute as much as I can get, right? Isn't that how people are? That people will look for relationships based on what they can get, not what they can give. We even go into marriage that way, right? People are writing up prenuptial agreements right now that says, like, if the man makes less than $60,000 a year, she can divorce him. If the wife doesn't cook 3 meals a day, he can divorce her, right? They are writing up prenuptial agreements based on what I can get from this relationship, not based upon what I can give. We are not coming into relationships anymore looking for ways that we can give to another person. We're looking for what we can get. Don't we do that? People do that all over the place, right? And it's annoying when it happens to us, but we do it. So I want to look at our relationship with Christ, because we come at Jesus that way, don't we? We'll come to Jesus with, what can you do for me? What can you give me? How can you build into me? What can you do, Jesus, for me? Right? And we'll come at our relationship with Christ with a, what can you do for me attitude. Now, and I understand why you do that, because Jesus does bless you in a lot of ways. He will change you in a lot of ways. He'll do a lot of good things in you and make you a new person. Jesus will do those things, but when I come at him with an attitude of, well, Jesus, what do you got? What can you do for me? I'm coming at the God of the universe in a very foolish way, because I want his blessings. I want the things that God can offer me, but I don't really want him. I want the blessings God can give me, but I don't want to give anything up. I want to come at him with the same sins, with the same way of thinking, with the same habits, with the same foolish choices, and have Jesus tacked on there so I get eternal life at the end. And we'll come at the God of the universe with a very, what can you do for me attitude. And that's not how relationships work. Maybe that's why we're seeing, even in the church, a 50% divorce rate in the world today. We are not coming self-sacrificially to the world today. You can, if you need to. You know what I'm saying? All right. So Josh is like near my kid. He can do that if he has to. When I was a child in church, my dad, Dad, hold your arm up. Not that long of an arm. Did you see that? But he could reach around our entire family and hit me. Somehow, I have no clue how his arm could do that. He was able to do that. So, go ahead and do that if you need to, Josh. So, oh, never mind. He's gone. And something else that we see people do is, if if you're not able to satisfy the needs in my heart, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to destroy your life, right? I will destroy your life if you don't give me the things that I need. Anyone who's been through a divorce has probably felt that. That you're just going to destroy your life because you haven't met their perceived needs. And we bring this idea into our relationship with God, not because we are maliciously going after the Lord, but because it's all we know. That's what we know about relationships. What we know about relationships is that broken model. And it's what we've been raised in. It's what we know. And that's what we talked about the woman at the well last week, right? That she was coming at relationships with all she knew. She was engaging in these. She was married 5 times, living with another guy. She was just coming at these relationships as best she knew how. She wasn't going in there hoping they would fail, but each one did. So she's coming at these relationships with all she knew, and they kept ending in disaster. And she had this attitude, you could kind of see it, of like, what are you going to do for me? So like, the man she's living with says, man, I'm thirsty. I could use some water. Will you go to the well? She's like, nope, not till noon. I don't go to the well till noon. It's inconvenient for me. I don't like it, right? So she had this self-serving attitude. I don't care who gets hurt. I'm going to do what I want to do. And we come at relationships like that. So give you an idea of what I'm kind of talking about here. Did you guys know Charles Boozer is a ridiculously good cook? Did you know this? You heard about it? Well, you can experience it for yourself. So I asked Charles Boozer, I said, buddy, you just make the absolute best cheeseburger that you have ever made. And he delivered. Take a look. I'm going to walk down the aisle. Take a look at this. He cooked it sous vide. How long? 2 hours. So he puts it in like this vacuum seal bag and puts it and like runs it through a water bath. So it's covered in cheese and egg, bacon, and caramelized onions. So Charles just went nuts. So anyone interested in having a burger? Anyone hungry? Want to eat one? For real? Yeah, you want some? Because there's another one on the pew by Amy. Amy, grab that. Bring it back here to Leah. Her and Tay will share. So Charles makes this, look at this. How big is it? You said half a pound. That's a lot of beef, right? Charles made this phenomenal burger for us. And I asked him, just make the best burger you possibly can. If you didn't get a chance to eat one of these, I'll just offer you one of these. This is a double cheeseburger from McDonald's. It's the same thing, right? Right? I mean, it's the same thing. It's a burger. It's probably beef. Right? Right? So we come at relationships, here's what I want you to see. We come at relationships like this. This is what we know. And we will turn down the bread of life, Jesus Christ. We will turn down the real thing, real relationships, real intimacy, real knowing people, right? Really being known by another. That's what this is. But we'll turn it down for this because this is what we know, right? I was talking to a kid once who said that. They were like, I prefer McDonald's. How do you prefer McDonald's over this? Well, that's what I'm used to. Well, I guess that's honest, right? Wendy's. Yeah, I like Wendy's. Listen, full disclosure, I bought 2 burgers when I got this and ate one on the way home. I like McDonald's burgers. I really do. But this is better, right? What Charles made here is obviously better. Leah, did you take a bite? How is it? Yeah. How is it? It's good, right? Yeah, because it's real. But all we know is the imitation. All we know is what, right? Is that shallow, no intimacy, no closeness, no knowing another person. We don't have deep relationships with a lot of people. And partially, I believe, is because we don't know any better. We don't know what real relationship looks like. So that was kind of what we talked about last week. The God of the universe desires deep relationship with you. He wants to know you intimately. He wants to know you fully. He wants to be known by you and have us seek after him and dig into him and know him in real ways. But what we know, and we get stuck and we get tripped up by the fact that all we know is the McDonald's burger relationship. Right? But also, not just last week, let's kind of transition into this week where Jesus said, I am the bread of life. And kind of what I want to point out to you is that only Jesus will satisfy you. You poor Leah, you're a mess right now. Someone grab her a napkin. Or 12. All right. So, what I kind of want to point out to you is that when Jesus said, I'm the bread of life, what he was offering us was the real thing. He was offering us something that we could actually be satisfied by, right? Because if you eat, like I ate a McDonald's burger at 10:30 last night on my way home from McDonald's because I make bad life choices. And so I'm driving home from McDonald's, eating that burger, and I got home and I was still hungry, right? If I'd have eaten that, I wouldn't have been hungry. And so what Jesus was saying when he offered them and said, I'm the bread of life, he's saying if you eat this, you won't be hungry again. If you partake of me, you won't be hungry again. The bread that, the manna that they had in the desert, which is what a lot of times Jesus is compared to, the manna in the desert, and simply put, they compare him to the manna because manna came for the people, it was given to them by God, that it was meant to satisfy their needs, help them survive, that it was never more than what they needed, right? Manna was just kind of given to them by the Lord. So when Jesus is compared to manna, what he's saying is, no, I'm more than that. I'm more satisfying than manna. I'm better than that. I'm greater than this. And when he stood before the woman at the well, he said, listen, if you drink the water that I give you, you'll never be thirsty again. Right? Now he's saying that if you eat of the bread, if you eat of me, I'm the bread of life. You eat of me, you'll never be hungry again. What he's offering is a permanent satisfaction, not just something that will leave you hungry again. And so the question really is, and I don't want you to answer this too quickly, but the question is, what are you eating? Are you eating the real thing? Or are you into the McDonald's relationship with Jesus? Don't answer that too fast. Where are you with Christ? Look at your life. Look at the way you behave. Look at the things that you seek to satisfy or to distract you. Are you satisfied in Christ? Or are you looking for other things that will leave you wanting more? And that's a real question I think we all need to ask. In Psalm 78, the Lord talked about this. So in Psalm 78, look at verse 17. Psalm 78, verse 17 says, Yet they sinned still more against him, rebelling against the Most High in the desert. They tested God in their hearts by demanding the food they craved. So not the food that would satisfy, not the food that God had given them, not what God had presented before them and said, this is for you to eat, take it. They wanted something else, and they demanded that he feed them things that they desired. And what we always demand are things that will never actually satisfy us. The things that we seek out to bring us satisfaction will actually never satisfy the deep needs of our heart. We choose the McDonald's burger relationship with God over the real thing. We do that. We choose the McDonald's burger relationship with God over the real thing. And for the Jewish listener to hear this was huge because the manna was such a big part of their story. It was so central to the story of the Israelites as they traveled through the desert and God would feed them what they needed. But Jesus to say, I'm greater than that. I'm more than that. I'm better than that, was huge to the Jewish listener. So look at John chapter 6. John chapter 6, we'll start in verse 22. All right, John chapter 6, verse 22. On the next day, the crowd that remained on the other side of the sea saw that there had only been one boat there, and that Jesus had not entered the boat with his disciples, but that his disciples had gone away alone. Other boats from Tiberias came near the place where they had eaten the bread after the Lord had given thanks. So remember that Jesus had just fed the 5,000 men, right? So 5,000 men, that women and children probably had quite a bit more to that number. Some estimate up to 15,000 people that Jesus had fed with 5 loaves and a few small pieces of pickled fish, right? So that's kind of the picture that Jesus had just fed these people. When they found him on the other side of the sea, verse 25, they said to him, Rabbi, when did you come here? And Jesus answered them, Truly, truly, I say to you, you are seeking me, not because you saw signs, but catch this, but because you ate your fill of loaves. Do not work for the food that perishes, but for the food that endures to eternal life, which the Son of Man will give you, for on him God the Father has set his seal. So Jesus just kind of convicted them a little bit and said, you're only coming after me because you're hungry. You're not coming to actually know me. You're not coming to actually partake of the life that I can offer you. You came because I fed you some bread and you want some more bread. Right? Isn't that what he just said? Verse 28. Then they said to him, What must we do to be doing the works of God? And Jesus answered them, This is the work of God, that you believe in him who he has sent. So they said to him, Well then, what sign do you do that we may see and believe you? What work do you perform? So, that's pretty arrogant, right? Having just been fed by the man miraculously. And they asked him what? Well, what sign are you going to do to prove it? He just fed 5,000 people with 5 loaves of fish. I think that's pretty good. But they asked for a sign. Verse 31, Our fathers ate the manna in the wilderness. As it is written, he gave them bread from heaven to eat. And Jesus then said to them, Truly, truly, I say to you, it's not Moses who gave you the bread from heaven, but my Father gives you the true bread from heaven. For the bread of God is he who comes down from heaven and gives life to the world. And they said to him, so ridiculous, Sir, give us this bread always. And Jesus said to them, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me shall not hunger. Whoever believes in me shall never thirst. So what Jesus just revealed in their hearts is they're walking in one of, if not all 3 of these failures. They're walking in arrogance, ignorance, and idolatry. So they're walking in one of, if not all 3 of these failures or these sins. They're walking in arrogance, ignorance, and idolatry. So what stood before them was the God of the universe, who had just fed 5,000 people with 5 loaves of fish and a few little pieces. The word used for fish there, it just means like little pieces of pickled fish. It wasn't even that much. We think of like a great big fish. Not a great big fish. Remember, it was a lunch for a little boy. I can tell you from experience, little boys don't eat a whole lot, right? When they get bigger, they eat more. But when they're little, not a ton. So, they had just a little bit of a lunch for a little boy. And so Jesus does this great, mighty miracle, feeds these 5,000 men, God of the universe, standing before them, just fed them, and the people, what do? Cross their arms. What can you do for me? All right, Jesus, we see you. We hear you. You'll feed people bread, right? So what are you going to do for me? And they stood there in arrogance before the Lord their God, asking him to do something for him. And it's simply put, I think it's because all they know of relationships is what can you do for me? And we walk in a lot of relationships based upon what someone else can do for me, not on what I can do for them and what can I give up for you. Because Jesus is standing there with them, offering them the chance to need nothing, to want for nothing, to desire nothing, to have no hurts, right? He's offering to take all that away, not saying that bad things won't happen, not saying that difficult times won't happen, not saying that the whole world won't shift for you. What I am saying, though, is that with Jesus, even if you have everything, right? But if you have Jesus and nothing, you still have everything. Because Jesus is enough. And he's standing there offering them everything they could ever need in relationship with him. And they want to know what he's going to do for them. So Jesus just literally fed 5,000 people, and there was this abundance left over. Now think about, in the book of Exodus, when manna was given, could they take a little extra just in case they got hungry later? Like they didn't, why not? What was that? It rotted, right? It went bad right away. They couldn't take more than what they needed. So he's like, listen, you're going to be hungry again, and I'll provide for you then. Because what God was trying to do is get them to see the value of the gift giver over the gift. Because if they focused just on the gift, then they would lose sight of the gift giver, wouldn't they? So he wanted them to continuously be bringing their hearts back to him, knowing that from him is where all good things came. So he's trying to draw their hearts and their thinking back into the understanding that he is all they need, and that if they have him, then that's enough. But they were too arrogant to see that their God was their belly, and that they were trying to feed themselves and their wants and their desires, so much so that they forgot about the God who is giving the gift. They were seeking to satisfy themselves, not the one standing before them. The God of the universe stands before you and you're too arrogant to see it. I would strike them dead, right? Like, what are you going to do for me? How about this? You're dead, right? That's probably the way I do. That's why I'm not God, right? Well, it's one of the reasons. But he stood before them and offered them life. He offered them his power, his forgiveness. He offered them kindness. He offered them love, because he loved them more than he hated being disrespected the way he was. Even though they were seeking their own needs and their own desires over seeking the God of the universe, who is literally on 2 feet standing in front of them. Isn't that crazy? The God of the universe standing before you, and you say, what else you got? Have anything else for me? Is that it? You imagine the arrogance that it takes to say that? Who am I to demand of the God of the universe? The ignorance as well, and the fact that they have no clue what they're saying. In the wilderness, the manna only lasted a couple of days. Or the manna only lasted for the day. Sorry, I misspoke. The manna would only last for that day. If you kept any extra, it would go bad. And did you think about the story or the event where Jesus fed the 5,000 people? Think about that for a minute. Did they only have enough to satisfy their needs? Or was there more? How much? Anyone remember? 12 baskets full, right? That they were able to collect 12 baskets full, and Jesus commanded them to collect extra. God said, listen, take enough manna for what you need in the wilderness. Just take enough for what's going to satisfy you for the moment, but no more. But here Jesus said, take the extra, collect it, keep it, carry it with you. He commanded them to take the extra with them. So even then, Jesus, in his miracle, when he brought bread from heaven, he said, this is better than the manna was. This is even better. And yet, I'm even more. So what the people of Israel should have seen in that moment was God saying to them, listen, I'm more than the manna. I'm more than the bread I just created. I'm better than all of this. Take me instead. Don't just take this bread. Don't take the manna. Take me instead. The greatest thing you have ever seen is standing before you. And you respond with, what else you got? All right. And they're so ignorant that they couldn't see that when they said, just give me more bread, I want to eat right now, just give me a little bit more bread, that wasn't going to satisfy them in the long term. That they'd be hungry again. They want for more again. But they were too ignorant to see that they were exchanging the glory of God for temporary things. And they do it again and again and again, coming back to the same well, asking for more bread instead of drawing near to the one who can satisfy them forever. And isn't that what Jesus is asking us to do? He's asking us to give up the McDonald's burger of what we understand about what will satisfy us and to actually draw near to the only one, the greater one who can actually satisfy each and every one of our deepest, most significant longings in your heart and your soul. Like he wants to reach in and he wants to make right, to make well. He wants to complete you, right? Have you ever watched, what is that, Jerry Maguire? You complete me, right? You know what I'm talking about? And then Renee Zellweger's like, stop it! You had me from hello, right? You know what I'm talking about? Nothing will complete you but Jesus Christ. There's not a person, there's not a thing on this planet that will complete you but Jesus Christ. And we think that there's things that will. If I have just the right job, if my kids are progressing and doing the things that they ought to be doing, if I have enough money in my bank account, I take the right vacations, if I'm fit, and if I have the right clothes, and if we have all the pieces of our lives perfectly put together, then I'll be satisfied. But the simple fact is that once I have all the things I want, there will be something else that I want. Isn't it? Isn't that the truth? That trying to fill the spiritual and emotional needs that we have with physical things is literally impossible. There's no amount of physical things. Now, you can write this down. There's no amount of physical things that can fill a spiritual or emotional need. There's not. You cannot fill spiritual needs with physical things. Won't happen. And our deepest need is a relationship with Jesus Christ. That's spiritual. And we try and fill it with physical things. And it will never work. We will always find ourselves, for lack of better terms, trying to fill the God-sized hole in our hearts with things that will not fit. And isn't that what Jesus said when he said in Luke chapter 9? So I'm going to read for you out of the book of Luke. Luke chapter 9, verse 24. For whoever would save his life will lose it. But whoever loses his life for my sake will save it. For what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses or forfeits himself? Isn't that what Jesus was saying isn't he saying, like, come to me and be satisfied, give up the things of this world so you can have me, right? Like, isn't Jesus saying, would you give up everything so you can have everything? Right? Would you give up everything you know about this world, everything you know to be true, everything you know and are familiar with and comfortable with so that you can have everything? Because what I'm offering you is far better than what this world is offering you. Not saying that things of this world are bad. I enjoy the things of this world. But am I willing to give up everything so I can have everything? That's the question. It's a question we've got to ask ourselves. Am I willing to give up everything I know so I can have everything in Christ? Am I willing to do that? That's something that I'm able and willing to give up as everything in my life. Because that's the question. That's what Jesus is asking us to do. You know, when Jesus called his disciples, what did he say? Drop everything, follow me, right? Drop your life, drop everything you know, drop your family, drop everything that you have, everything you hold dear, drop all of it, follow after me. Do you know Jesus is still calling disciples the same way today? He has not stopped calling disciples the way he did then. He is still drawing people to himself just like he did then. He's asking you, will you give up everything to follow me? Will you give up everything you hold on to and do what I ask you to do? Will you give up everything you have and follow after me, the great giver of every blessing that we enjoy, is not the blessing's not the point. Jesus is the point. And are we willing to give up everything we have, everything we hold dear, to follow after Jesus? Am I willing to go through with that? And that's the question that I think we all should wrestle with. Am I actually partaking of the bread of life, or am I eating the temporary things that will leave me hungry again? Am I drawing my satisfaction from Jesus himself or from other things? So as you wrestle with that question, the altar is open. Amy's going to come and we're going to sing and just kind of close out our time together. But I do want you to stop and think and wrestle with that question. What am I satisfying my needs with? Is it Jesus or is it something else?